Welcome to That's Gotta Hurt Live, wherever you're watching. Hope you make tonight your masterpiece. My name's Dr. David Geier, double board certified orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, and media medical expert. Whether you bet on sports, whether you play fantasy sports, or you just are like me and you love sports and love watching sports, I help you understand the injuries of pro and college athletes so you can hopefully win at all of it. Fantasy sports, gambling, or you just have more fun watching the game. A lot to get to tonight. I'm going to go kind of quickly. We actually have a decent number of injuries to talk about from over the weekend and from today, but I'm not going to take too long because my Memphis Grizzlies are playing right now. Just started, or they tip off in a minute or two, against the Philadelphia 76ers. My Grizzlies are having an amazing year, and they're on a 3-game win streak. I did not anticipate winning tonight. I thought playing the Sixers on the road would be a tall task, but it was announced that Joel Embiid will be out. So now we're 4-point favorites. I don't know what the line was before, but I'm sure we were underdogs. He is taking rest, even though one NBA writer I follow on Twitter says that he is out for Rihanna news, and I don't know what that Rihanna news would be, if she dropped new music or what, but I thought that was kind of clever. But he's played 21 straight games, and you got to remember, this is a guy with a lot of injuries over his career. I mean, he had the back injury and the foot injury before he ever came into the NBA, so he's been playing great. He's a favorite for the MVP according to the odds makers, but he's getting a day off. People in my world, the Grizzlies fans, there is some talk that that the Sixers are scared to play us. They're just going to go ahead and write off the game. I don't know. I hope that's true, but we'll see. All right, so that's all I have to say about Joel Embiid. Does not sound like anything worrisome. All right, let's start, because it was such a big weekend in football. Let's start with really the only major injury news we have regarding the Rams or the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is Bengals tight end CJ Uzomah left the game, was carted off the field actually, or carted back to the locker room for a knee injury in the first half. He went up to make a catch, landed awkwardly, his knee buckled. He was seen on crutches and in a knee brace after the game. They were saying the initial report was an MCL injury. Now, in a session with the media, head coach Zach Taylor said he didn't know all the details, but the working diagnosis is an MCL based on initial tests. Presumably, he's had an MRI. So let's talk. There's a lot to talk about here. First of all, let's just do the obvious, the easy part, which is what's an MCL. So this is a right knee. Let me turn this in a way that everybody can see it. This is the outside of the knee or the lateral side of the knee. That's your LCL. And then you've got the medial side of the knee or the inside. This is your medial collateral ligament, whereas the ACL, PCL are down in the center of the knee. So the MCL is along this side of the knee. What it does is it prevents your knee from opening up this way. So like if you get hit, let me put this in the camera, get hit on the outside of your knee, it opens up the MCL and tears it. So you get this ligament here. Now that almost always heals on its own. There's one type that doesn't. If it's pulled off the bone down there and the tendon or the ligament, gets flipped outside of the insertion of your hamstring tendons, that's not going to heal, but that's pretty rare. These typically heal on their own. Now, couple things to note there. One, we talk a lot about ACLs, and a lot of times if you can examine the knee right after somebody tears their ACL, you can do a certain kind of test, like Lockman's test, a pivot shift test, and tell that the ACL is torn even before they get an MRI. So a lot of times the team doctors, the athletic trainers know what the injury is. With an MCL, similar type of thing. They can do a test where you basically open up the inside of the knee doing what's called a valgus stress and see how much that opens. So that's why they had a working diagnosis of an MCL injury, and we're cautiously optimistic. Got the MRI. It sounds like there's no other damage. Again, this is if you believe those initial test results and what the team is saying about them. Now, here is where it gets interesting. MCLs can take anywhere from a week to 6 weeks. Some of it depends on where it is. If it's up higher toward the origin of the femur, that's usually 1 to 2 weeks. Down on the tibia side, that's more like 4 to 6. Some of it's the degree of injury. If it's just a small stretch of the ligament, going to be shorter. If it's 50% more torn, it's going to be longer. If it's completely torn, you're probably looking again at the longer time frame. Here's the interesting part though. So basically he's got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. This is eerily similar to, and I've promoted this before, this is the book I wrote, That's Gotta Hurt. That's why the show's called That's Gotta Hurt. I wrote this in 2017. You can buy it wherever books are sold, Amazon, Apple, anywhere, Barnes & Noble. And I wrote a chapter on this very injury in 2009. I don't know if you remember, but Pittsburgh Steelers were playing in that Super Bowl that year. In the AFC Championship game, receiver Hines Ward suffered an MCL injury against the Baltimore Ravens. I think it was the Ravens. I'm pretty sure that's right. And didn't play much of the rest of the game. And there was this race to get him back before the Super Bowl. They had 2 weeks, just like Uzomah has now. And the team doctor of the Pittsburgh Steelers back then, I think he still is, Jim Bradley, I talked to him, interviewed him for the book, interviewed Andrea Kramer about this, the NBC sports sideline reporter. And very quietly, Dr. Bradley did 3 PRP injections into the MCL to get that to heal. And Hines Ward did in fact play 2 weeks after a grade 2 MCL injury, which is really hard. That's typically, again, closer to 3 or 4 weeks, but he had 3 separate injections. Now, what made that a big story is that nobody knew about it. Somehow Andrea Kramer sort of got word of it. She talked to him, got confirmation, and then she reported it in the sideline little thing, blurb that she gives her little spiel, like right before the game started. You know how they go, the 2 people in the press box that are covering the game, the play-by-play guy and the commentary guy, and then they go to the sideline reporter. Well, that was Andrea Kramer's sideline report, was this procedure called PRP. Instantly was picked up by the New York Times, was the lead story about a week or two later on page 1 of the entire newspaper, not just the sports page, about how everybody heard about Hines Ward's PRP. Is that something that I can try? And then it just took off like crazy. PRP, in case you don't know what that is, platelet-rich plasma, is a procedure where we draw a little bit of blood out of your arm or somewhere, take the syringe that has that blood, put the syringe in a centrifuge. If you remember high school biology class, the centrifuge spins real fast, pulls off the red blood cells, pulls off the white blood cells. What's left is the clear yellow part of the blood called plasma. That plasma has platelets, which have growth factors inside. And those growth factors, things like fibroblast growth factor and vascular endothelial growth factor, help that MCL heal. Now, it can be used for all different kinds of injuries as well. I'm actually doing a video for Better Than Ever Live next week, I think, about PRP for tendon and ligament injuries. So if you want to know more about it, check out that. But coming full circle back to CJ Uzomah, I would bet a whole lot of money. And again, I'm not a huge bettor, but if I was going to bet that he's going to get those PRP injections probably he's already had one, honestly, and several times to get him ready to try to play on Sunday, a week from Sunday. All right, well, what else? Let's go to the NBA real quickly. I saw this was not one that I mentioned that I was going to talk about. Bradley Beal is going to miss the next 2 games with a wrist injury he suffered Saturday night playing us, the Memphis Grizzlies. I remember hearing that he was doing something with his hand, but I was sort of half paying attention because I was talking to some other people, but he apparently got hurt during the game. Anyway, he's going to miss 2 games for that. The Wizards are kind of struggling, so there's no need to necessarily rush him back. All right, LeBron, we talked about him last week on Thursday. I said, hey, this may just be an issue with just wear and tear. He's 37, has been playing a lot of games, especially with Anthony Davis out. He was sent back to LA. He's missed 3 games now. He was sent back to LA off their road trip because of persistent swelling. Now, the question is, why would LeBron be having knee swelling? Well, there's kind of a simple answer and then potentially a more interesting answer. So the lining, which is not shown here, but the joint lining, the synovial lining that surrounds the knee, is what makes your joint fluid. And if it's inflamed for some reason, it makes a lot of joint fluid, hence your knee being swollen. Now, that can happen for a lot of not a big deal reasons. But when it persists, you start to wonder if there's something structural going on. Now, supposedly he had an MRI that was normal, but I do wonder if what is causing him to have trouble is if there's breakdown of the cartilage lining on the ends of the bone. Maybe it's under the kneecap or on the end of the femur. He's 37 and has played, basically 20 years in the NBA. If you do the math with all the playoff series and all, and maybe that cartilage is starting to break down. That is one of the times you see people have swelling in their knee. You see that sometimes with early arthritis before it becomes a real chronic problem, that cartilage breakdown causes irritation and inflammation and you get a big swollen knee. I don't know if that's necessarily what's going on in him, but it can be a tricky thing because if you try to play through swelling, you end up creating this cycle where it swells more and you have more pain, and so at some point you have to break it. So I'm curious what they're trying to do. You try to avoid cortisone and steroids into the knee in young professional athletes, and so I wouldn't think that would be the option, but this will be an interesting one to see. All right, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not all that interesting from an injury standpoint. He suffered a right ankle sprain. No big deal. This was 2-3 days ago. I think it was Friday against the Indiana Pacers. What's interesting is the team has already announced, and this is the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is in full tank mode / rebuilding mode with their 82,000 first-round draft picks that they've acquired over the last couple of years. They are saying he's out until the All-Star break, which is the middle of February. Now, it's possible that this is a bad ankle sprain, maybe a high ankle sprain, or it's 3 ligaments on the lateral side of the ankle, and it's bad. But this, to me, strikes me as, we're not really trying to win that much. If he doesn't play, that's all the better for us. We'll have a better chance at a top pick. That's what this strikes me as. Now, could be, this is our future star. We've paid him a lot of money. We're going to build around him. We want to make sure he's completely healthy. absolutely true. It's just really unusual for, at least in my mind, for a team to be that blunt about, hey, it's going to be a while. They didn't say it's going to be 5-6 weeks. I don't know. I just have a little sneaking suspicion this may linger well past the All-Star break. I hope not, because he's fun to watch, and you'd hope the team's not doing that for any other reason than for his personal health. But you do wonder, all right, do I have anything else? What else did we say we're going to talk about? Joe Ingles. All right. The Memphis Grizzlies beat the Utah Jazz on Friday. Memphis is in the 3 seed, the 3rd position right now in the Western Conference. Utah's in the 4th. And we won to go up, get another game lead. They've really been struggling. Donovan Mitchell is out with a concussion. Rudy Gobert is out with a calf strain, and they've really struggled. And so one of the things, as we head into the trade deadline, was going to be they need to recruit or bring in some defense. And so one of their major trade pieces was 34-year-old forward Joe Ingles, who went down. His knee buckled, a really gruesome buckling. Not a fun injury to watch the video if you see it on Twitter. But his knee gave way. Basically shifted out of place. And that almost always is a torn ACL. Gets an MRI today, and sure enough, he does have a torn ACL. Now, apparently, there's no other damage, which I would mean, as an orthopedic surgeon, there's no MCL injury, there's no PCL, there's no meniscus tear, there's no articular cartilage damage. Let's assume that's what they mean. Now, the timing of this could not be worse for the Jazz in a number of ways. One, they were trying, they're in this free fall slide. Now, without him, they get even thinner. They're already out Mitchell. He should be coming back soon. They're out Gobert. I haven't really heard any details how much longer he's going to be out. But from a defensive standpoint, from an offensive production standpoint, big deal. It is a big deal. But then going forward, he was going to be a guy you were going to try to trade to another team to bring somebody back in. I don't think there's going to be that many people that want him, knowing that he's going to be out 9 months or more. Now, so you could maybe send him out. He was in the last year of his contract. Maybe you get something just because he's an expiring contract. I just don't think that's going to be very much unless you throw in a draft pick or two to add to that. Now, from a Joe Ingles standpoint, this is particularly bad because now what do? You're heading into free agency. Maybe the team will say, all right, we'll sign you to a 1-year deal, one of these prove-it contracts, see how well he plays in that year. Because ACLs have pretty reliable recoveries, very predictable in terms of when somebody's going to be expected back. And he's not a guy that relies on explosiveness and things like that. But he is 34, so it may cause teams to be hesitant. But if you're a team in another market, do you offer him a big contract? I mean, again, 34 years old now, another 9 months before he can play again. Just a really, really awful situation for the player and the team. And I don't have anything for or against the Jazz. They're fine. And I love Mike Conley, obviously, from being in Memphis, but I just hate to see this, especially the timing of it, right as somebody heads into their free agency. This may unfortunately cost him a lot of money, but maybe you'd be better off signing a 1-year deal and play well and then get a 2 or 3 year deal worth a lot more money after that. That's what you hope for. If you have other injuries that you want to talk about, other players, certainly let me know, or questions about those, let me know that as well. I intend to be here at least tomorrow night and Wednesday night. I very likely will not be here Thursday and Friday night, but any interesting injury news, I'll maybe shoot a quick video about it and just put it up on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. If you know people that like to talk about sports and sports injuries, definitely tell them about it. Subscribe, click the bell to be notified, and you'll find out as soon as I'm on live anytime. Also, check out Better Than Ever Live this week. That's my noon show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tomorrow, we are talking the ketogenic diet, keto, and how it affects sports and exercise performance, which is really interesting. And Thursday, we're going to talk about exosomes for osteoarthritis. It's sort of the latest and greatest, better than stem cells, sort of a replacing stem cell option for arthritis. So we'll talk about what that is, does it work, how it might work, and some things like that. So check that out. Again, that's Tuesday and Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Better Than Ever Live. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will see you right back here tomorrow night for That's Got Hurt. Take